Get over that fear. Yourself too. Get over that fear. All right, guys. In this video, I want to go over the top 3 tips that, over my life, I kind of accumulated from having really intimate conversations with close friends and strangers on their hurdles when it comes to finding their look, when it comes to photography. We're not talking about no gear. There's no bullshit in this. Like, this is a heart-to-heart type video. And I hope anybody who's been really struggling trying to figure out what they have to say and what the look of their work is, I hope this kind of helps you break through those barriers. And at the end, the last tip is probably going to be like the hardest thing to get over. So let's just get into it. A real quick debrief on myself. This is kind of important. I'll put chapter marks down below, so feel free to skip over this. But I feel hearing this might start connecting the dots for you guys here. So I'm a 90s kid. I grew up, laying in the back of my dad's truck, listening to 90s country music. My mom would have like fashion magazines just littered around the house, all from the 90s, of course. Shania Twain music videos on loop that, my dad was watching as well. Like, she was hot. But some of my favorite childhood memories being in this hidden gem of a small, dry foothill town. One side, there's like a vast desert, on the other side just like mountains and rivers. And then in my teen years, my buddies and I would hop in the back of trucks and fly down the side of a mountain, just going off-roading, holding 22 rifles in our hands just irresponsibly and shooting at random yucca plants. Moving into my adult years and trying to take more responsibility and accountability for learning more about my own indigenous roots, which I sadly wasn't able to learn more earlier on because my dad passed away when I was 10 years old. And then when I was 18, I picked up my first camera, and that kind of opened up the floodgates to really express some of these vivid memories that I had, all the way into, opening up those back roads for me to travel on, to really search for those stories and for myself and to tell all those visions that I was collecting, if that makes sense. So photography has become a part of myself. Like, it was one of the avenues that I took to finding who I was, and it's part of my definition of gratitude. And I think that's going to be important here. So with all that said, I hope that painted a vivid picture of not just of who I am or where I come from, but why my photography looks the way it does. So let's get started with these 3 tips. We're going to start off with the easy one. Second one's got to be a little bit, deep. The third one, I don't think a lot of people are going to want to hear it, but it is what it is. So my first tip, don't click off. Some of you guys might think this is lame, but you need to do your homework. What does that mean? I think a lot of people show up to photo shoots and they're kind of like, what do I do? You need to make it a routine to do your research before a shoot. You need to create mood boards and treatments and creative decks, and you need to do your homework. But even beyond that, when I show up to shoots and there's no homework that has been done because maybe you just like, we didn't have time to plan, or we're just going out to have a fun shoot, I have a backlog from 15 years of photography of influences baked into my brain. It could be anything from other photographers' works to painters, to colors, to textures, to music, to pop culture, to fashion, to just random, a moment when I looked at the clouds in the sky, anything that kind of gives you that elevated feeling of immense gratitude. I don't know about you, but there's times where I'll be in the desert and I'll see red mountains posing in front of Toy Story puffy white clouds and a blue sky. To me, that just makes me melt, and it brings a rush of gratitude to me. And those moments are internally baked into my brain. That has an influence on my work. I could be on a road trip and I stop at a gas station in the middle of nowhere, and an old man gets out of his old rusty truck and he has on these suspenders, and they're like really old vintage, like Levi suspenders or something. All of those textures just they sing to my eyes, they sing in my brain, they just kind of make me melt. The rust on the old truck and just showing that it's not perfect, and there's like these odd rounded edges, and you could tell like a human hand had a part in that and not a machine. Or if I'm like passing through Arizona and you just see like these giant sage green cactuses just kind of like defining the sun and standing up against it, and it's just cooking and it's just living, like all of those textures and those tones and like the story behind it and the time behind it and the life behind it, all those things kind of have an influence on my work. Going back to my childhood, like seeing all those old fashion magazines from the 90s, fast forwarding into the future and learning like a lot of those ads were shot by Ellen von Unwerth, who, obviously back then they were shooting on film, and she would shoot on very vivid film stocks and add a lot of contrast and have fun with the developing. As I was starting to do more studying in photography, I would like Peter Lindbergh's work would start popping up and really sing to me. And I would get like these small glimpses into when I was a child and seeing his work in magazines, and just remember seeing like black and white desert portraits of like beautiful models and like the texture. Say if you had a tungsten lamp and the way it was reflecting off the magazine, like all these little things like have an effect on the way I edit and the way I shoot and the models that I choose to shoot and the environments and the poses. I hope this is making sense. The environment you were raised in describe the textures of your vision, if that makes sense. I know some of this might be a little bit pretentious, but this is like the shit that really will start defining your work here. All the way down to the way you rebelled as a teenager, from fashion to music, like that is still a part of you. You don't have to go and find yourself. You're already yourself. You just need to figure out how to describe yourself. I randomly fell in love with motorcycles. I didn't grow up with motorcycles. I grew up like loving motorcycles and I had motorcycle toys, but I never rode one until I was like 20 or 21 or something like that. And I finally bought my first motorcycle, and now like those are like ingrained into my brain. Aside of just like going out there and doing your homework and trying to copy your favorite photographers, you need to figure out the things that you love, the things that you were raised with that really stuck with you. They could be good things, they could be bad things, they could be trauma, they could be blessings. Whatever those things are, those are who you are, and those are what are ingrained in your brain. And you need to figure out what those are and put those into your work. And that will lead into tip number 2. This is where we get a little bit more to the mental side of things, and we're a little bit deeper here. So the second tip is finding yourself. I promise and guarantee you, you will find way more fulfillment in your own work if it represents you as a human being. I think this might be the biggest hurdle for most people. And it simply comes down to not being able to define yourself. So no one just amazingly comes up with these brand new, unique, creative perspectives and ideas. Everything is a result of how you were raised, the environment you were raised in, the pop culture that you have consumed. All those are influences on our work and us as human beings. Originality comes from a union of influences breeding within your subconscious. That might be a little bit deep, but keep saying that to yourself and figure it out. Originality comes from a union of influences breeding within your subconscious. Your environment, advertisements, music, fashion, the way you chose to rebel as a teenager, all of this is a representation of who you are today. All the accountability and self-awareness that you gain as an adult, all of the different worlds and lives that you chose to pursue as an adult. You did all that for a reason. That is a part of who you are. That is a part of your work. That is a part of the look of your work. All that is a texture of who you are and what represents you. You don't need to go out to find yourself. You don't need to go soul searching. You are already who you are. You just need to learn how to look inside and describe it. The third and final tip, this is the one where people are like, oh, you need to get the fuck out and shoot. Get the fuck off your ass, get up, get out, grab a freaking camera. It doesn't fucking matter if it's a brand new camera, a super old camera, it doesn't matter. That's a conversation for another time. If you're struggling with figuring out what your look is, get the fuck up, get a camera and go fucking shoot. Go figure it out. There's no failure in this. Art isn't perfection. There's never going to be a perfect art. No one can even agree what perfection means. You need to get out there. You just need to shoot, and figure it out. Keep shooting until you figure it out. And you're going to find out. You're going to be shooting forever because you're never going to find it out, because as a human being, you're always developing as a person. So your work should always be developing as well. Again, if you never pick up your camera, you're never going to cross that road. There is no final destination. There's no end. There's no knowing it all. You need to humble yourself and learn. You're always learning. In my younger adult life, I got super obsessed with psychology and I'd buy all these books and watch all these videos and yada, yada, yada. There's one thing that was kind of agreed upon when it comes to artists, and it's the artists that are constantly just like bragging about their work. You know, they're overly content and happy with their own work. This is what the studies show. Like, this is not me saying this. If you have a problem with this, you know, go look at the studies. But it shows low intelligence. One of the studies that I did a deep dive in is how artists progress in their work. And it kind of showed a lot of people that were easily content and happy with their work might be a little bit more easier to please in their capacity of intelligence. And then the people that are really hard on themselves, where, you know, they might take an amazing picture, they're kind of, you know, you could be happy and proud of yourself, but there's always things where you see where it's like, well, I could have done this. Maybe there could have been like, you know, I could have done this differently. You're constantly challenging yourself. I know some people might lead that into, oh, that's imposter syndrome. Fuck that. I don't believe in imposter syndrome. I think imposter syndrome is you having some self-awareness and realizing that you're not the greatest artist to ever live and that your farts smell like roses. It's okay to be self-aware. It's okay to be hard on yourself. Obviously, there's a point where you need to kind of chill out and relax. I'm still learning to do that myself. But, you know, I have ADHD and that's a different mental health type thing. Maybe I'll do that in another video. So there's no final destination. There's always an adventure to be had. So if you ever have one of those moments where you're just kind of feeling lost and you just had like a bad few days of shooting and just all your shots kind of just feel mid or like just total dog shit, realize in that moment right there, you can accept the fact that you're never going to be a great artist. You're always going to be learning. There's always going to be someone better. That's just the reality of it. Again, there's no final destination to photography. It is an art form. It is a constant, ever evolving craft. Just like a human being is. We're never gonna reach perfection. Our art's never gonna reach perfection. It's supposed to represent us as human beings as we grow and evolve as well. So that's pretty much it. I know these weren't really traditional, like, oh, this and that, and you need this camera, this lens. To me, it has nothing to fucking do about gear. I know on YouTube, we talk a lot about gear, especially me, but that's because when I make videos like this or more poetic films or whatever it is, motherfuckers don't tune in. And so it's kind of like, why am I gonna put 2 weeks of work and thousands of dollars in this video where no one's gonna show up? But guess what? I still do it because it's one for me, one for them. That's how I treat YouTube. So I'll forever do that even if nobody's gonna tune in and watch it, sadly. So again, it has nothing to do with gear. It doesn't really have to do with techniques. That is kind of a part of it, but it has to do mainly with identity. And I think in this day and age when, you know, we're just having phones shoved in our face and social media and constantly like these windows of comparisons just shoved into our eyeballs, I think sometimes it's hard to focus on yourself and to keep your identity of self really close to you. It's easy to lose that. Some real quick little minor tips on like mental health when it comes to that kind of stuff. I know some people like taking breaks from social media. I kind of think that's kind of bullshit because that's like having an addiction to something and you're saying you're going to quit that addiction, but then you pick up a different addiction. That's not really solving the issue. Social media is not your issue. You yourself, you're your own issue. And it's because you're not creating boundaries for yourself between consuming all this content and keeping these healthy mental barriers with yourself to remember it's like, yeah, that person might have fucking amazing work and my work might not be on that level right now, but that is that person. They have a totally different life. I have no idea what their story is. I don't know what their process has been. I don't know what kind of help they might have had. I don't know what their story is and what their adventure has been. I need to fucking focus on myself. That's what people need to do more of. They need to focus on themselves. Even when it comes down to like negative comments on YouTube, I want to have more of these mental health talks here on my channel, but I feel like a lot of these negative comments are coming from people searching for a community and searching for, you know, to be a part of something, and they don't know how to find an outlet for that. So sometimes maybe it comes out as negativity or as hate or just like weird bitterness. And I think a lot of this comes down to identity itself, a self-awareness and confidence within yourself. One of the things I like to say is confidence looks cocky in the eyes of the insecure. The last thing I'll say on that, and then we'll wrap this video up. If you are in fear of being judged, fuck them. Get over that fear. Fuck yourself too. Get over that fear. People are always gonna have something to say. There's been times in my life where I wore some cringy shit where, you know, I might have put out some cringy shit. Like I'm a musician, I put out some really cringy music, or I've shared really cringy stories of me singing and stuff. And yeah, it's a little bit embarrassing, but I don't give a fuck. Like I was having fun. I was enjoying it. I was expressing myself. I was figuring myself out. And to this day, I'm still fucking figuring everything out. Like again, it's a never ending, like ever evolving thing. So like if you want to wear something that represents you, fucking wear it. If you want to listen to a certain music and your buddies might make fun of you, fuck them. Listen to it if it makes you happy. If you want to shoot a certain stuff, if you want to talk about a certain thing, if you want to make a reel, but you're like scared people are going to judge you or think you're not professional, fuck it. It doesn't matter. They have no control over your output or your success in life. The only way they have control over that is if you allow them to stop you from being yourself and expressing yourself. fuck them. I'm sorry I'm cursing so much, but so, like, seriously, enjoy yourself. Be proud of yourself. Be confident in yourself. You are a unique individual. Everybody has something to say. It doesn't matter if you're raised poor or rich, if you're raised in the slums or raised in a mansion, it doesn't matter. You have something unique to say. Yeah, maybe a lot of people don't care what you have to say, but there's other people out there that do care. So who gives a fuck about the people who don't care what you have to say? Care about the people that do. Create your own community, be a part of a community. There's a lot more fulfillment in life in expressing yourself and being proud of yourself and just being yourself and not giving a fuck. I'll wrap that video up here. Sorry, it's a little bit of a tangent. I don't know how many people are actually gonna watch this video or are actually gonna care, but I hope I helped some people. It doesn't really matter what age you are. I know people in their 40s to 60s that are still trying to figure this out, all the way to 10-year-olds to teenagers, just really trying to figure out their shit. We're all humans. We're all doing the same rat race called life. We're all trying to figure out why we're here or why we even exist, and be nice to people. Don't be a dick. That's it. I hope this helped. Peace.